Hello, we are the Jigsaw Corporation. We are a marketing consulting firm, and today we're looking at the issue of security in the information age. In particular, we're going to discuss implementing a security policy and a plan for a firm in the manufacturing industry, namely that being Positive Charge Labs. Upon conducting a thorough analysis of the security system currently in place at Positive Charge Labs, our firm discovered that they in fact have an antiquated security system. This meaning it's old, it's out of date, and it doesn't have any real relevance. We also discovered it was lacking any formalized policy regarding security, and this is also important because if you don't have the technological aspect or the ability to implement security, and you don't have the required human resources or the required policies in place to ensure that your employees are engaging in best practices, then your firm is particularly open to disclosing confidential information and trade secrets you really don't want to have out in public. Now, we suggest that they need to upgrade the current security measures in order to meet this military contract that they're currently seeking to obtain. Through conducting thorough research, our firm firmly believes that security engineering is the only way to implement effective security at Positive Charge Labs. And security engineering is all about building systems to remain dependable in the face of malice, error, or mischance. So we're essentially protecting ourselves in the event that an employee or a computer system attempts to gain information that they shouldn't have access to. Fundamentally, effective security is comprised of four components. Environmental design, which is how we are going to design the office space to maximize security. Intrusion detection. How are we going to detect when individuals are looking at information we don't want them to be looking at? Mechanical, electrical, and procedural access control. How are we going to limit people's access to particular information within the organization? How are we going to protect our trade secrets? How are we going to set up a hierarchical level of security? Who has precedence over another? And number 4, personal identification / authorization. How are we going to distribute this hierarchical level of security? Is it going to be through fobs? Is it going to be through cards? And this is all dealing with the technological aspects of security. However, we need to remain mindful of the constraints associated with human personnel as well. So we're going to briefly discuss the human resource implications involved with implementing security, because we firmly believe it's an important aspect of ensuring that this system is going to work. Businesses must establish clear policies designed to maintain and secure their trade secrets if they wish to deter employees from engaging in improper disclosure of company information. Legally, this is required to seek compensation for improper disclosure. The necessary steps to implement this policy is that upon employees must be notified that they may be exposed to confidential information. In order to protect the legal rights of the company, employees must sign a company confidentiality agreement. Good practices involved in human resource policies is screening employees before employment to make sure they're a good fit, providing employees with education on how to appropriately deal with confidential information, and in particular, the most important one is to distribute information on a need-to-know basis. So our hierarchical level of security is going to be implemented through having 4 classes of security. An executive level, which is the highest, that would be top secret, managerial, employees, and consultants / guests. There's 2 ways in which we can control the flow of information. We can control the flow of information vertically or horizontally. In order to control information vertically with the 4 different levels of security, we suggest implementing the Bell-LaPadula model. This model was created under the circumstances of protecting military data. It was created in 1973 by David Bell and Hélène LaPadula, and essentially the main part of this security protocol is that information cannot flow downwards. To implement security measures horizontally, we propose implementing the Chinese wall security method, and this was initially designed to prevent conflict of interest in the financial services profession. Essentially, an individual can perform either action A or B, so they have access to information, however they cannot perform both together. As a side note, according to a survey conducted by the Computer Security Institute, this was a survey conducted with the FBI as well, average financial losses from unauthorized access to data were estimated at $303,234 in 2004 alone. Average losses from proprietary information theft were pegged at $355,552. So we've discussed vertical and horizontal measures of security, and we've also looked at the human resource implications of security. Now we're going to look at how we're going to effectively implement that security through technology. Mechanical, electrics, or physical measures of access control. We can limit access control physically, mechanically, and technologically. We should create layers between the levels of security. Technological systems that identify and distinguish traits should be present, so we should have a hierarchy established. It should be a multiple port system, and we suggest the use of RFID tags and the use of security guards through ensuring that each successive level requires that individuals have access to that level. And if they don't have access, or if they're not of that security clearance, they're not able to gain access to information of a higher level. However, informations at a higher level are more than able and capable of grabbing information from lower levels. So in order to implement our security, we looked at the floor plan for the office, and we discovered that it was quite open, and any particular employee, executives, managers, or even guests had access to the whole office. We firmly believe that this was quite a bad idea, and we've redesigned the office to ensure maximal security. And in fact, you will see through the flow of the floor that individuals require security clearance to move to each successive level. So guests only have access to the purple area. Beyond that purple area, an RFID code is required to get into the next level. And upon the next level, each employee requires a clearance, executive, managerial, or employee, to get into the other areas. Now, working through that lovely flow diagram we had before, we're going to move into a little bit more of a different topic. Personal Information Protection and Electronic Documents Act, PIPEDA, requires a company to disclose information with the consent of the individual. So essentially we're looking at three factors of authentication. It's okay to have that hierarchical structure, however we do need to let our employees know that they are involved within this hierarchical structure, and there's something that the individual has, there's something that the individual is. They need an ID number, they need a physical item, and they need a job position. We should ideally have one or two, or maybe even all three of these factors. We suggest three, because we're, security nuts, I guess you could say. And it shouldn't be based on personal facts. It should be based on their position within the organization and their access to information. We should also maintain a reliable audit of records to provide date and time of when information was accessed within the organization. It's been a pleasure to do this presentation today at this time, and I'd just like to leave you with a quote. There's a quote among security analysts, and they essentially compare a fox to a hedgehog. And they essentially say, what do you prefer to have in your organization? Do you prefer to have foxes who have lots of tidbits of little information, so they can become, they're not really specialized, but they have lots of information about your organization? Or would you prefer to have hedgehogs, and those being individuals who have a ton of information on one particular topic? It is our firm belief that if you have the correct protocols in place and the correct security systems that we've discussed in this presentation, that we would much prefer to have hedgehogs as opposed to foxes.